Hello, and welcome to the newest episode of the Blue Collar Racing Podcast. This week we got Sara from Smoking Speed, and they put on the King of the Street Challenge. So tell us about yourself, and tell us about how you guys got into this, and about the event.
So basically we started the event in 2017. It was pretty much basically we wanted to host it because one of our buddies was running for DPC and didn't get in. So we felt that, and at the time it was the highest horsepower power stroke pretty much anywhere in the nation, and we felt that it was more of a popularity contest, and the trucks that really deserved to go needed to have an event that they could just pay an entry fee and basically go ahead and compete. So we designed it based on the trucks that the guys already had that were in our group. We had, my husband had a Dodge, another one of our friends has a Chevy and a Duramax, and another one had that Ford that we were talking about, the 6.7. So we pretty much based it on what those guys did weekend in and weekend out with those trucks. The only thing we couldn't put in, basically we didn't want to put in, was a trailer tow, but we did dirt drag, sled pull, drag racing, dyno competition. We made a street drive. In the competition, you have to drive 100 miles. So trucks that actually did drive on the street, that actually did compete on the weekends. That's pretty much how we based it. All the trucks have to be full-bodied, full interior, no fiberglass hood, clips, none of that stuff. No fiberglass beds. The beds can't be cut out. So it's pretty much however you can get that truck on the track every weekend, whether you swap tires or add a weight rack or whatever you do, but it had to be full-bodied, registered, insured, tagged, and able to drive on the street. So we pretty much built that competition around those three trucks that we had in our friend group at the time, and made it so that it was a buy-in and anybody could go, and we cap it at 50 trucks. That's kind of where we're at with it, and it's evolved into what it is today.
All right. So is there any differences from today's King of the Street Challenge compared to what it was in 2017?
As far as rules go, pretty much everything has been kept the same, except we did add safety equipment over the years. The first year that we did it, the top truck was around 2,000 horsepower. Today, Chris Patterson competes with his 3,000 horsepower green Dodge. So we've kind of evolved the safety equipment a little bit. The higher horsepower guys that are going to be pushing those numbers, they have fire suppression systems on, which is the same fire suppression system that Chris had last year at the competition. The guys kind of got together and did one big bulk order, and a lot of the higher horsepower guys now have that fire suppression. We did add on, because of the recent accident with the turbo that came through the hood of a tractor and into the crowd, we did ask the guys to put on the turbo blankets or some sort of shielding around their turbos. The bolts they've had since day one. We've had that since 2017, but we basically added a shielding to the turbo. We added on that the guys now have to wear their full suits on the dyno, full fire suits. A couple, safety equipment things that they've had to do if they are searching for bigger numbers, but for the most part, the competition itself has pretty much stayed the same. We did add, we added a bracket class for or a bracket portion of the racing, because we were getting kickbacks from the guys that, I shouldn't have to cage my street truck to race, which is true. And there's an ET bracket class. Any ODSS event, any racing event that you ever go to will always have an ET bracket class. So we did put an ET bracket points into the overall point standings for the weekend. So you can either do a heads-up race or you can do the AT bracket. Both are worth 500 points. So it really doesn't matter if you do cage your truck or not, you have a fast truck or not. You can still come out pretty good even if you don't have the fastest truck that's there.
Okay. So how does the point system work for that event across the board with all the different challenges?
So basically each part of the challenge is worth 500 points, and except for the street drive, which is 1,000 points. We made it basically a pass or fail. So the only part of the competition that you really won't be able to make up and still be in the money is the street drive. Everything else is basically worth 500 points. So you're scored on your time, on your drag strip time, your drag strip placing. So if you win your bracket class or your heads up class, you get 500 points, and then it's 10 points docked down per placing, but we do it by rounds. So if you're first and second, you'll be 500, 490, and then we do 480, 460, 440 on down because we do it as rounds. So it'll be, top four semifinals and quarterfinals and that sort of thing. Dynos placed highest to lowest. So if you win, we don't do it on a percentage scale. It's if you win the dyno, you get 500 points. You're second, you get 490, so on and so forth, all the way down. So it's based on a 10-point scoring system. It keeps the race or the overall point standings for the race for the crown pretty close. Every year we've done it. We've had podium finishes that have resulted in ties. And when that happens, we then go to the highest horsepower truck. We'll break a tie, and then if that also ends up in a tie, we have a tie-breaking system as it goes down. But it's basically every part of the competition. Your max points is 500 points, and then it goes down from there. So each one you'll do. First day is usually drag racing, and then we tie in the dyno somewhere in there. You do dirt drags, you'll do sled pulls, and the street drive. So overall is 7 different scoring totals that you'll get that you add up throughout the weekend. So it's more of a endurance competition than it is just smacking a number type of thing.
All right. And you said it's capped at 50 trucks?
Yes. We cap it at 50 trucks because we can't do more than 50 trucks on the dyno in a day. That's kind of where we draw the line.
Understand that. Now, if you have, I know you said you had like the ET bracket and stuff. If you have a truck, one of the listeners have a truck and they don't want to compete in the whole event, can they come out and still race in the dirt drags or do like one of the events, or is it just strictly to the 50 trucks?
For the actual King of the Street challenge, it's all of the events combined. But if you wanted to come out and just race, or just dyno or just truck show, we do have those available at the event. Friday and Saturday we run a no prep event that's put on by Matt Giardia, who's a local guy, a local racer. He's going to be putting on the no prep event this year. They've got the classes broken up into, I think, 3 different classes for that. And then we do a spectator dyno event. We do a spectator truck show event. And in years past, we have had sled pulling. I don't know if we're going to be able to pull that off this year, but hopefully we can get that ironed out in the next couple of weeks if we are going to be able to do it. But we do have spectator stuff that guys can come in if they just want to do one thing or the other. But if they want to be in the entire competition, then we usually tell them that they've got to do everything.
When is the event and where is the event hosted?
It's November this year. It's November 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and it is at US 13 Dragway in Del Mar, Delaware.
And when can competitors get in and when can spectators get in?
So competitors basically depending on which part of the competition that they're in. All the King of the Street guys can get in on Thursday. We have a welcome party for them at our bowling alley restaurant the night before on Thursday night. We do that, and that's for all the competitors, the sponsors that are in KOS itself. And then if they just want to race Friday, they can get in at 3. We'll also do dyno on Saturday, Sunday. Usually gates open at 9, both of those days.
And what makes your event different than most of the other events? Like, what do you guys really focus on to be different?
I think the biggest thing for us is that what I've heard the guys say as a competitor, the biggest thing that makes us different than the other events that are out there, were out there, are the facts that they can bring their everyday driving truck in there that has the normal stuff the guys are driving up and down the street on, and they can do well with it. They can bring the truck that they compete in and weekend out and do well. Josh McCormick has won 2 years in a row with a truck that was consistent. It wasn't mind-blowing. It wasn't anything spectacular. It was very reserved dyno numbers, very reserved drag strip times. He actually ran the bracket portion of the racing both years, and he was just consistent. And if you have a consistent truck, then you will do very well. It doesn't favor those that dump a ton of money in their trucks. It doesn't favor those that succeed in one portion over the other. It's basically the event that, you have to do well in every part of it in order to place well on the podium. I think that mixed with the fact that the guys really do treat this event like this is the one that they have to go to every year. There's a competitor group chat that the guys are in, and you see them supporting each other. You see them swapping parts back and forth. You see them, the shop owners that are a part of it. There are shop owners and there are guys that just are weekend warriors, and they don't wrench. They do other jobs. They're linemen or, they're construction or something else, and they just want to have fun with their trucks. And the camaraderie between them all, they all bring parts. They all help each other. You'll see them wrenching all night long. And, it's different. You see that here and there with some of the bigger events. You see that here and there with certain cliques. But with this competition, it doesn't matter if you have a gas truck or a diesel truck, or if you're the big dog that's there, or if you're the little guy. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. It doesn't matter. Tiffany gets the same respect that all of the guys do. So it's a different deal than I would say most of the rest of the industry is, just because of the camaraderie and the way that the guys all stick together, and they all want to compete, but they want to see everybody else compete too.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I have not been to KOS, but just the diesel events that I go to with my personal race truck, the diesel community is definitely one that helps each other out. And it doesn't matter. I went to events when my truck was broken, and I ended up under hoods of other people's trucks, and I've been at events where mine's broken, and I got 14 people showing up helping me trying to get mine back on the track.
Right.
It's definitely
they definitely want to win by beating you. They don't want to win because you weren't in the game.
Yeah. I heard you say something about gas trucks. So is a gas truck allowed into the event too?
Yes. So we actually have one gas guy that has been with us for, I think he's been there for 3 or 4 years. LS Brian, as we call him, he has a gas truck that he comes and competes with against the diesels. He's been fighting gremlins with that thing every single year. This year, he actually thinks he's got it figured out, so he should be coming to see kind of how it works. The only thing that would keep a gas truck really from placing well would in a normal competition would be that the torque numbers cannot compete with the diesels on the dyno. So our dyno, we only from day one have only counted horsepower. We don't count the torque numbers because they vary so much. So from day one, we've only counted horsepower. So when he came to us, a couple years in and said, hey, I want to compete with my LS truck, we said, sure. So there's a minimum weight limit of 6,000 pounds that the guys have to make, and there's a maximum weight limit of 9,000 pounds that they have to be under for the duration of the competition. So as long as any of those trucks fit that criteria of being a full body and meeting that minimum and maximum weight limit throughout the competition, then yeah, they can. The gas truck can compete if they want to.
Okay, so it's basically any kind of truck, however it's powered, can compete as long as it's 6,000 to 9,000 pounds.
Pretty much, yep.
All right. I know last year I saw some stuff where you guys had, I think it was called like the Dyno Camp, where it was like the mechanical injection trucks. Are you guys doing that?
Yeah,
again?
Dyno Camp. Yep, that's Dyno Camp. So any of the older trucks can compete in that. We will have that again this year. I think, so they'll pretty much run the same amount of competitions that the King of the Street guys do, only they don't have to do the street drive part. So they are the best of your drag racing, dirt drags, sled pull, and dyno. And they do their own points competition amongst them. And they have their own payout amongst them as well. So it's kind of like all of the mechanical guys, there's P pumps in there, there's VP trucks, there's, I think Power Strokes cut off at 2002. But yeah, it's for the older truck guys. Yep.
Now, with that, do you still have to be a full weight, full bedside truck, or how's that work? Is it still the same?
No, that's pretty much, no, that's different. So they are pretty much, they can come as they sit, and they can also, there's some of those guys last year didn't do the full thing as well. So like if you have a race truck and you want to do the racing part and so you'll do the drag strip and the dirt drags and the dyno part of it. You can still place well without doing the sled pulling. Then we have guys that they'll come and they'll just sled pull, guys that'll come and they'll just dyno. So that it's a points competition as well, but they do place the individual events. So it's kind of a mixture of everything. But if you do compete in all of it, then you get the overall points and overall prize for that. Okay.
That's good to hear. Well, I'm actually interested in coming to King of the Street Challenge, but I'm a P pump guy now. So I was a VP. VP went out. I was tired of messing with that. I went P pump. So I'm hoping to come and have my truck ready in time and see what it'll do.
Yeah, that'd be great. We'd love to have you.
So I know the Ultimate Call-Out Challenge did it a few years back. I don't think they did it this year. But I know how they did like the team thing where like if you didn't do the sled pull, you could have somebody else do the sled pull. Do you guys do like a team thing, or is it just one truck for everything?
No, we do one truck for everything. We've always been one truck for everything, and we've kept that from the first year, that your same truck will have to do everything. You can swap tires. You can add a weight rack for sled pulls. You can adjust things on your truck. So it's a little bit different than, like, say, the older competitions like DPC. You can actually change stuff on your truck, but it has to be the same truck the whole time. We actually have a rule in there that you can't pull the engine out of the truck. Everything that you repair on the truck has to be done with the truck intact, pretty much. So you can change out, you can change out fluids. You can, twist an axle. You can do a lot of things, but we kept it to one engine for the whole competition. Now, if you cannot pull that engine and make a repair to it or sleeve it, whatever you can, that's totally allowed. But you can't pull the engine out and swap it for a whole new one. That's against the rules.
Okay. Now, what about, I know some of the, crazy high horsepower builds, they'll do, a different rear end for pulling compared to racing. Do you allow that, or does it kind of cut off at just the, your basic stuff?
Yeah, you can pretty much do anything to that truck that you want to, except you cannot pull the engine out. So we've got guys that add duals on for pulling. We've had guys swap, do whole refresh on their transmission, fix their transmission. Simple stuff like that. They're all going to fix anything that they can. They're going to bring all the parts that they can. They're going to beg, borrow, and steal parts from the other people that are there. But we pretty much allow anything at all except for pulling the engine out.
Okay. Sounds good. And then, different turbo setups for dyno compared to racing, that's all good to go, right?
Yep. Any turbo configuration you want to do, it doesn't really matter to us. You just have to have bolts after the turbo, after each turbo, and you have to have some sort of shielding around it, or have some type of blanket on it, whether that's Kevlar or not. It's got to have some sort of blow-proof housing or cover or something on it.
Okay. I just want to kind of clear one thing up. I heard you say. You said bolts behind each turbo, or just bolts behind the turbo that's for the exhaust?
We did bolts behind each turbo. In the group chat of the guys, we collectively decided that we were going to do bolts behind each charger, just because if you have one wheel in one of your Atmo chargers or something and it cuts loose, it'll contain majority of it, instead of sending it through to destroy the other charger, and then you have two wheels, that may bust through the back end of it. So we asked them that they put bolts behind each charger or V-band clamp. The things that they're making now, quite a few companies are making those X things that clip right into the V-band, but we asked everybody that they have that after each charger.
Okay. Just kind of clarify the rules for the people that are listening and might want to compete.
Oh yeah, that's fine. And we're on Facebook. We've got our phone number, email, everything is also posted everywhere. Anybody can message us at any time. We've got a lot of guys that do that. They'll send us pictures and say, hey, is this legal? Hey, can I do this? After they register, we do add them to the group chat so they can ask, they can also ask the other guys questions as well along the way, like, hey, what'd you guys do? Did this work for you? Or, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. There's a lot of the guys in there that will help them as well. So after they get registered, we do add them to that. And a lot of the things get discussed in there before we actually come out with it. If something needs changed or something needs clarified, and we're always available to help anybody that asks or needs it.
Okay, awesome. So, vendors. Do you guys have vendors out there? How can vendors get a hold of you? That kind of stuff.
We do have vendors. last year I think we had about 6 vendors last year. Not we don't have a huge vendor row. A lot of this competition is mainly competitors and crew. We do allow general spectators. It's usually not a super crowded event as far as that goes. So it's more for the guys to compete type of thing. We did allow spectators just because other competitions like this in the past have not allowed them, and people really wanted to go. So we do allow spectators to come. Most of the time, they have all access to everything. They'll have access to the pits. They'll have access to trackside stuff, basically whatever that they want to do. The vendors that do come, they usually bring parts. I know our shop takes a bunch of parts. Last year, they pretty much cleaned us out of parts that we took. So it's not really a show where you'll have a bunch of t-shirt vendors and stuff like that, like other events out there, but it's mainly for the guys competing, and people that are really enthusiasts about what those guys are doing. We have a lot of those type of vendors come, or a handful of those type of vendors, but we don't have a lot of, like a whole vendor row, so to speak.
Understand that. Just a little side note on something you said. So is there a minimum or a maximum crew requirement for each truck? Like, do you guys have a maximum? I know, like, some events, like, you can't have but so many crew members. How do you guys do that?
We used to do that. Yeah, we used to do that. We used to do a max of 2 crew members. And then it turned out that a lot of the guys wanted more, or they wanted their wives to have crew member access, or their brother, or, their dad, or whoever. So we pretty much did away with the crew maximum. There's no minimum. Some guys come as a one-man show. Mario comes just himself. There's a couple other guys that they come just themselves, and they don't bring anybody with them at all, whether that be family, crew, whoever. They just come out for the weekend, hang out, compete with their truck type of deal. And there's some guys that bring a whole crew. One year Levon competed, Firepunk's got a big crew, but we don't really regulate that anymore. We used to, we don't now. It's kind of like the more the merrier. If your crew isn't helping you, then they're going to end up helping one of the other guys. That's just more hands that everybody can use to get their trucks back on the track.
Okay. Now, on that with the crew, how does that work? Do they just get like a spectator ticket, or do they get like a crew ticket, or how does that work for you guys, like, insurance-wise?
Each driver gets their crew passes. So each driver will get the welcome packet. Usually they get those at the welcome party, or they get them at the brunch the next morning. But they'll get their welcome packet and all of their bands. They'll get all their crew passes. So somebody can't come to the gate and say, "Oh, I'm with so-and-so's crew." It doesn't work like that. Because the crew passes basically get you everywhere that the driver passes do. The only thing that we basically don't let crew members go into are the driver meetings. Whenever we have a driver meeting, whether that's a discrepancy or an issue, we don't allow crew members in those meetings. They're not allowed to give their input. But everywhere else, crew's allowed. So crew passes are different than general spectator or VIP passes. Crew members are, they're allowed on the track. They can back you holding your hubs. They can, pick your line. There's a lot of things crew members can do that any other ticket won't let you do. So that's why we make the drivers grab those.
Okay. Good information right there. And then probably the last question I got for you is, how important is it to have a good relationship with the track when you host an event like this?
I would say it's extremely crucial. Your relationship with the track facility, it can make or break your event. As diesels, there's a lot of tracks out there that are not diesel friendly. There's a lot of facilities out there that are not multi-day friendly. So you really need to pick a facility that will be accommodating. They're going to allow people on their grounds overnight. They're going to allow you to camp. They're going to allow the diesels there. You're going to be able to lock different areas of the event. You're going to be able to separate the spectators from the crew, from the competitors. It's extremely difficult if the track doesn't cooperate with you. So it's very important. A lot of us that host these events, some people do their hometown track. A lot of us don't. If you don't have that hometown track, you're not going to know who to call for EMTs. You're not going to know who to call for, equipment or anything that you're really going to need. So a lot of times the tracks need to facilitate those sort of things, especially for this type of event and it being multi-day, and we're having so many different competitions involved in that. Dragway 13, US 13 does a lot of setup for us. They'll hook us up with the EMTs. They'll hook us up with fire, with track crew. They do a lot on the back end of it, I should say. A lot of prep goes into it. And, if you don't have a good relationship with that track, or a track that honors their word or honors contracts, it can make it pretty tough. So I would say it's extremely crucial that there's a good relationship with any promoter, with any track that they go to.
I agree with that. Now, a little side note that I heard you say, you said about camping. So competitors, they can camp there overnight?
Yes, you can camp overnight. Pretty much anybody can. You can camp overnight. There's security at the front gates. So if you don't have weekend passes, weekend pass holders are the only ones allowed overnight. So if you have weekend pass, you have a camper, you're allowed to be there overnight. We have security patrolling. So if you're there and you get in with a weekend pass, you don't really have a camper, you'll get booted. But campers are allowed. We don't have hookups at this track, so generators are allowed and recommended for campers. But we also have a water and pump truck that comes and fills water up every morning, and they'll pump their septic for you. So you won't have fresh water hookups, so to speak, but they will fill you up with water and dump your tanks throughout the weekend.
Okay, awesome. And honestly, I think that's about all the questions I got for the event. If you got anything you want to add or say, go for it.
I think we pretty much covered everything. It's just a good time. We've got guys that have competed since the first year, and they keep coming back. So it's a lot of fun, and it's tough. It is very tough. There's guys out there that say it is the hardest competition in the diesel industry just because there are so many things you have to do. You have so little time to wrench. Your truck gets really beat on throughout the whole weekend. So you don't really have time to fix it. So it's not like you can go all out and hammer on it, and then, you have a big crew behind you that you can just, fix it for the next day type of thing. You pretty much only have a few hours in between each competition. So it's pretty tough to do. It's tough to get through. But, the guys love it, and we're still here doing it after all these years just because the guys love it. So if anybody out there is thinking that they want to do it, I would go ahead and pull the trigger, because the guys will help you through it if you're not real sure about it, if you don't really know, how your truck's going to perform or how it's going to do. You have the best in the industry come to this event. There's guys that they're coming back just because they want to see how they stack up to guys like Patterson and Robbie Garcia and, some of the bigger guys that do go to UCC. They come here and they want to know where their truck stacks up. So it's a good time.
Definitely. Now, what about, so if you want to compete in the challenge or you want to compete in the dyno camp, how much does it cost to get that competitor spot?
So each one of them is a little bit different. KOS is $550 for the weekend. That covers you, your truck. It gets you a camping spot. It gets you pumped out all weekend. It gets you a pit spot. We also hook you up with campers if you need them. One of the girls on our team, she gets everybody hooked up with campers and tents and the whole 9 yards. So we kind of facilitate all of that for everybody. But it's $550 to enter KOS, and I believe dyno camp is $190, maybe, something like that. So, but they can get signed up right on the website. It's www.smokeandspeed.com. Dyno camp's on there, and KOS is on there. The live feed will be on there. They can get everything all at one spot. Tickets are already on sale. You can get tickets, single day tickets or weekend passes. Camping spots are also available. There's plenty of room at the track. So
at the dyno camp, you still get the camping spot and the weekend pass and everything, right?
Yep, you do.
All right. Well, that sounds really interesting. I'm really excited about the event. I plan on being there with a truck. If I don't have the truck ready, I'm still planning on being there. I'm really hoping I'll have my truck ready by then. So hopefully we can see what my truck does in the dyno camp and see how I stack up against everybody.
Sounds good. Yeah, the more the merrier. So hopefully you can make it.
Is there a truck limit on the dyno camp? I know you said 50 trucks for the King of the Street. Is there a limit on the dyno?
No, we've actually never had dyno camp fill up that many trucks. So we really don't have a limit for that one.
Okay. Well, I think that answers all my questions. If anybody else has questions, feel free to contact Sara or any of the Speed and Smoke people, and I'm sure they'll point you in the right direction.
Sounds good. Yep. Thank you.
And so Facebook, Instagram, where can people find you guys?
We are on, we're on the World Wide Web, obviously. Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
Okay. Well, I think that about does it for this one.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. You're welcome.
Thank you. And that concludes the newest episode of the Blue Collar Racing Podcast. Until next time.